All right, we look like we're just we're waiting on Commissioner Oglesby, and then we should be able to start this meeting unless, Chair, you'd like to go ahead and start at this time, but we do need a Chair and Commissioner Oglesby to have a quorum.
Hello there, Supervisor Lopez.
Oh, that's right. Yes,
We'll start with the basic.
Okay.
So I will call us to order, and this is the regular meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee. What day is it? September 8th?
September 9th.
September 9th, Friday, September 9th. So could we have a roll call, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Lopez?
Present.
Commissioner Oglesby? Still hasn't jumped on. And Chair Leffel?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, under new, we have considered the draft balance sheet of June 30th, 2022, and draft profit and loss through June 30th of 20. I'm going to just take 1, 2, and 3 together because there is not all that much change. What precipitated this was a call from Commissioner Snodgrass wondering why we were not getting information on a timely basis and why we were waiting so long for things. And so Kate and I had quite a long conversation about it. And it just seems like it's the right thing to do to go ahead. We can review them at finance and budget, and then they can be in the consent package for the full commission. So I understand this is not our final of June 30th, 2022, July or August, but it does give us a better snapshot. Are there any things on here, Kate or Mike, that you want to address?
I could start if that's all right, Mike. We also have, as further supplements to these 3 agenda items, some information that was provided to our committee yesterday. And that information are the April and May financials. We went back that far because it was the March. You last received a full set of March 31st financials. And then in the past, this has been more of a quiet time and reconciling the financial statements with the audit that's being prepared. So we thought in conversation with our chair, we thought it was a good idea to also take you back to April. So we're really looking at that supplemental information as well as these 3 items, with the goal being to take them forward to the full commission for information items on the consent calendar on September 26th. In terms of the content here, I did want to note, particularly for item 3, which are the balance sheet information, balance sheet and profit and loss statements through August 31st. I wanted to update you on a couple of things, all good news. Income and expenses are basically as would be expected at this point in time. And almost all contributions have been received from our local agencies. We've received all contributions to LAFCO for this fiscal year from our 12 cities. The county payment is in progress, and we are anticipating only about $35,000 more to come in from several of our small special districts. We further anticipate that we will complete the collection of those receivables by the end of September. The other item I'd like to note for your attention is the status of our litigation reserve. in April, that reserve was, or end of March, that reserve was about $300,000. We have now spent approximately $60,000 as of this week on litigation expenses related to the Water Management District project. And we feel that that reserve is holding well and should suffice for the coming months as LAFCO defends that action. So that completes my.
We had authorized, I think, wasn't it up to 75,000?
Yes, Chair Luffel is referring to Best and Krieger contract that we have for special counsel services relating to that litigation. The contract that was approved by the commission in March or April authorized up to $75,000. And we have currently spent about about $50,000 for BBK, probably 50, let's see, excuse me, nearly 55,000 as of today. And so with your permission, committee and chair, I am recommending that we go back to our commission at the September closed session meeting and consider an amendment to the BBK contract to supplement the original amount by another $75,000. And that amount will get us through the next, probably the next 4 or 5 months of litigation related work.
You're asking for an increase by how much?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite understand.
I
What
think
you
said. You're
she
asking
asked how
for
much you're asking for an increase, 75K, right?
Yes, 75K.
another 75.
Yes. And that would carry us through, at least through probably January or so. We're going to have a couple of court-related meetings in December and January. And we can discuss that, of course, more with Kelly in closed session. So that item is not on the agenda, but I'm asking for your informal direction.
I'm good with the informal direction.
Okay, thank you. Mike,
And Chris, so what had happened was I was looking at the numbers and it occurred to me that I asked Kate, I said, how much are we into this? Because particularly if we did not have a meeting in September, and then if they could actually run over the 75,000 that we had initially allocated, which means then we'd have to have a special commissions meeting. So I'm okay with it. I'd rather have the money allocated and be available rather than have to have a special meeting in order to continue to use BB&K services, particularly with 2 court dates setting at the end of the year and the beginning of the year.
okay, thank you on that item. And then Mike, is there anything that you wanted to add for the first 3 agenda items and that supplemental information?
Yes, one thing. As you know, we're going through our annual audit. I'm not sure exactly where the auditors are in their timeline of field work and so forth, but suffice it to say, we'll be coming back to you and then the full commission in November, December timeframe, maybe sooner, but as we normally would. But I bring that up because one of the items on here, I do want to work out with the auditor, and that has to do with the pension liability that's sitting on the balance sheet right now as a negative number as a liability, which may seem a little strange. It's our understanding that CalPERS has a surplus as of June 30th, 2022. And we want to make sure that the auditor's on board with the journal entries that we recorded to reflect that. So that's, all these statements are watermarked as draft for not just for that reason, but obviously particularly the June 30th statements will be going through the audit process. We don't anticipate major changes, but if there are, it may come in that particular area. So I don't have a lot more than that to report at this point because we're still trying to get our mind around it, but it's a good problem to have if in fact we've got a major surplus there, and takes away the unfunded accrued liability for PERS, but we're still working on it. So I just wanted to point that out in case someone says, why do we have a negative $262,000 liability sitting on the balance sheet? We'll get back to you with more on that later.
I did have that circled on mine as a question. So what is your explanation for it?
Well, at this point, we don't see it as a liability. So that was our journal entry. I don't know if we want to reclassify that as an asset, some sort of overfunding. I don't know yet, Marianne. We're trying to figure that out. That's why I'm saying we want to work through it with the auditors, make sure we're on board with them. So I just would ask for a little bit more time for us to figure that out. But if in fact CalPERS has a surplus and we've already funded our liability, then that shouldn't be there. That's why we've got that as a negative. So we'll work it out. You can be assured that once the audit's complete, whatever numbers there will be correct.
Okay.
I'm just curious if have you heard anything in your circles, any of you, Marianne or Chris or Kate, about what's going on with CalPERS in the surplus?
No, because then they turned right around and they had a $29 billion deficit with their latest round of investments. So, you
Right.
know, we may
So-
have just had like an eye of one little snapshot. That's the problem. The airport standpoint, we just paid down $4 million of an $8 million unfunded liability, and we paid down $11 million of an unfunded liability 15 years ago, and bonded it and paid it off, and then it just starts creeping up again. So that's the thing, I cannot in my mind understand how LAFCO would have absolutely no unfunded liabilities over the years. So,
Well, we have been good about funding them. That's one point.
no, I'm telling you, everything else I'm on, we fund it too. And we fund it, but what happens is when they do their corrections, when they get through their audits, like 2 or 3 years after the year, it turns out that there's not enough money. So, yeah, I'll wait. I mean, I circled this. So if you say you're going to talk to Karen and try to figure it out, we'll wait and see what it is, how this is going to look.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that's what the plan is. But I don't, other than that, Kate, I don't have anything else to add. I think
Chris, did you have
pointed out-
any thoughts on that?
No, same expectations in terms of what's coming versus what was. And so I think there's going to be this true up at some point, and the numbers are not going to remain in our favor. And I think that point is coming sooner rather than later. So we're kind of hearing across the board, along with healthcare costs increasing next year. So next year's not looking like a fun budget year for any organization.
No, I think it's going to be a little ugly. Okay, a draft P&L for through September 2nd of 2022, our year to date. Item 4.
Yes, Chair, that's item 4. We do have a report through September 2nd. Again, income expenses as would be expected at this time. I would like to note one item. The line items relating to training, travel, and vehicle mileage. Right now, that's showing as no expenses and a total budget of about $11,000. We have had that very enthusiastic participation rate in the upcoming LAFCO conference down in Southern California. And so I'm anticipating that I will need to bring to the Budget and Finance Committee at mid-year a budget amendment, because we'll significantly go over all three of those line items to accommodate all of the commissioners and the staff that will be attending that conference.
How many commissioners have shown interest? Can you share?
We have, I believe it's seven commissioners attending, Safarina,
Yes.
and we had budgeted for approximately 2,
Wow.
which would be more of a typical year. Also, the budget for those line items we carried over from the last couple of years. When we did our budget here in this past winter and early spring, a lot of uncertainties about whether or not meetings were going to be virtual or canceled, and so the reality now is quite a bit different, and the participation rate is as high as it's been in my tenure here at LAFCO. So we for those 3 budget line items add up to about $11,000. In doing our rough estimate of what the real costs will be this fall, we think that the conference itself may run about somewhere between $20,000 and $25,000. And then there's minor other training that happens during the year, workshops and things. But so I'm anticipating that between those 3 line items, that the total cost for this fiscal year may be about $30,000 rather than the $11,000 that is currently budgeted. And I anticipate bringing roughly a $20,000 budget amendment to you at your meeting probably in February, as we do a mid-year budget review. And that can be funded through unreserved savings.
Well, the good news is that people are engaged and want to understand and learn, and that I totally appreciate. So I think it's well worth it, as long as, and I am a stickler on this, that when people go, they don't skate out and go to other museums or things, or stay in their room and take phone calls that they can quite handily. Have anything on here that that I noticed? Did we prepay for the conference yet, Sabrina?
Chair, we have at this time paid for all the registration and any of the additional workshops for the commissioners that expressed interest in attending. And for the most part, the room block is reserved and full. And so we're just going to be moving forward from there.
The conference registrations, the LAFCO registrations totaled almost $7,000, and that was paid for on our credit card and was properly coded to the travel or training category, training line item. However, it will not show up as being, it's basically a prepaid expense, and will show up as a line item expense in October, once the conference actually occurs. So,
Okay, well, my question was, and she answered it, that approximately 7,000 was paid. So we know that we're already over about 1,800 in that particular line item. So I think that probably sets the stage for the rest of it.
mhm. And then with 11 people attending altogether, including your staff and council, roughly another $1,000 each for the hotel and travel, etc.
So can you quickly tell us, Kate, who all is going from staff and commissioners? Can we run through that?
Yes, from staff, we have Kelly Donlin, our general counsel, and Jonathan and I will
Okay.
be attending. And then Safarina, you have a rundown on our commissioners, please?
I do. From the commissioners, we have Commissioner Craig, Commissioner Rutescu, we have Commissioner Lopez. We also have let me do it the other way around. I'll tell you who's not coming is Commissioner Lopez, Commissioner Snodgrass.
No.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Alejo, Commissioner Snodgrass, and Commissioner
Gorley,
and
Commissioner Alejo
will not be there. So we have Alejo, Snodgrass, Poitras, and Gorley. Everybody else will be attending.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I had to do it that way.
And the authorization for attendance was something that the commission did at the last full commission meeting. So that's the only item that I wanted to inform you about and bring to your attention with respect to agenda item number 4. Otherwise, that information, our request is that you receive this report for information only, and it will this report actually does not even go to the full commission. It's only for our staff use and committee. Budget and Finance Committee use. This particular report is provided by Mike's firm every 2 weeks. The monthly reports that you saw in agenda items 1 through 3, those would be the ones that we bring in the future to the commission on a monthly basis.
So it looks like we're probably gonna be over budget in salary. Would that be a fair assumption with the fact that in the first 2 months?
We should be, I'll take a closer look at that, Chair Leffel, but we should be fine on salaries because we do it based on actual anticipated. Actual staff salaries, where each person is at in the salary range, if there is one, and taking into account any salary adjustments during the year. So that one we do a detailed salary worksheet. So I don't think we're going to go over, but I'll review that of course every month, but also as part of our mid-year budget review.
So Kate, what I'm doing is looking at the
It looks like the chair has fallen off. Her bandwidth has been showing up as low, so I'm not sure whether that might be the problem that she's having at this point.
hopefully she can call us and get in at least over the phone. Maybe I'll
give her a quick call.
okay, thank you. Supervisor Lopez and Mike, our chair is in Arkansas at the moment.
You back?
I'm back.
Yeah, you might want to go on just audio, Chair Leffel.
Back.
Your bandwidth is pretty low.
Okay, let's go to the next item. Chris, did you have any other questions on it?
No, I'm
September
good.
2nd.
I'm good.
Okay.
Okay, item number 5, consider an update to the procedure for review of LAFCO bank warrant registers. So this is me. When I went on the airport board and when I went on 2 other public boards, I just find it that those are just pieces of paper that I doubt very few people look at. And as long as we're getting a weekly or a monthly P&L and balance sheet, I don't see any reason to have it for the full commission. If finance wants to take a look at it on a quarterly basis, to drill down into something, but I don't know. Chris, what's your opinion?
I'm okay with that. I think if it's just paper, it's just paper. I mean, how often should we be looking at it? I think I'm looking to staff for that real recommendation, given how often things change.
Well, I understand that Hayashi Wayland provides Kate every 2 weeks a P&L and balance sheet.
And the
So-
and the bank warrant register comes, that's prepared once a month after the and is reconciled with our Wells Fargo checking account.
So I think staff has plenty of paper to look at. And from a standpoint of us overseeing things, I personally don't need to see every month the payroll numbers and the this and the that. It just seems to me like it's just filler in a binder.
I'm okay with that going. So what are you proposing now?
That we from this committee propose to the full commission that they're not going to see it anymore. If they want to see it, they can ask for it to be sent to them by email separately.
Okay, I'm good with that.
But the flip is they're going to get a P&L and balance sheet up to date at every meeting. So,
Right.
okay. So that'll go for our September meeting and it'll be on consent.
Yes, we'll bring that recommendation.
Okay, now we have scheduled.
And I think at this point, Mike, did you need to get off?
Fees and
Yeah,
John?
Kate, it's okay.
Is going to provide this this report, and Mike, I think you can probably get off if you needed to.
Yeah, I have a meeting I need to transition into, so I appreciate that. But thank you. I'm always here for questions.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you so
have a
much.
good
Mike.
weekend, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, bye. Okay, Jonathan.
Okay, for item 6, the fee schedule. So just as background for this item, this was referred to the Budget and Finance Committee by the Commission at the August 22nd meeting. The purpose for the staff and commission's review of the LAFCO fee schedule basically comes from our adopted work program, which includes a task to review and update the project fee schedule and hourly staffing rates as needed. So the reasoning behind staff using a calculation methodology to determine LAFCO's analyst hourly billing rate is because our Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act requires that LAFCO's fees not exceed the estimated reasonable cost of providing the service on which the fee is based. So in speaking with the chair about how to present this item to the committee, staff has shown how the analyst costs and overhead costs were derived in comparison with 2020. And that's all included in attachment 6.1. The only change from the August 22nd item is that staff has applied this year's 3% COLA, which was approved with the budget for the analyst salaries, which resulted in a recommended staff billing rate of $171 per hour. The item that came before the commission in August was for $168 per hour. That's my presentation. Kate, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, and then I know that we're also being asked to look at a rental increase. So does that make any impact on this?
I can answer part of that. The rent increase would take effect next July, would not be effective at all this coming year, if approved. And then, Jonathan, you could answer whether or not the lease costs are factored in.
Yes, so the lease costs are factored in the overhead calculation of the fee, the billing rate, and it's based on the adopted budget. So that takes into account the costs for this fiscal year, but not the next fiscal year.
It would be good for us to continue to review this on an annual or biannual basis, the fee schedule, as we have been doing. And so I commit to doing that again next year as we look at other costs with the proposed budget to be considered next spring.
So is the bulk of what I'm thinking the bulk of what is charged to people is salaries, correct? Because we are a service business, that you are a service business to work on the analyzation of whatever project comes before you. Is that fair?
Yes, that's fair.
Okay,
And those.
So I'm taking 14%. I know I opened a can of worms when I started this, but I just want to make sure that the numbers that we are really capturing it. When I see, I think last time we said we had an 11% increase. Now we've got the COLA in here, so now we have a 14% increase. And a 15% increase in average annual benefits. So, Jonathan, are you real sure about your numbers?
Yes, I could walk the committee through the calculation if you'd like.
Why don't you, just so we have an idea of how we got here, since it changed from the last time we saw it.
Okay. So I'm showing attachment 6.1 on the screen. Can everybody see this?
Maybe it could be a bit bigger if possible.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is
Yes.
the summary of the calculation, and we can go into specific breakdown. So roughly for 2022, the salaries, the 123,000 number was calculated based on the 2 analyst positions. And we took those positions at step 5 and then took the average of the 2 and came to 119,000, and adding in the COLA brought us to an average of 123,000, which is shown up here as part of the main calculation. And comparing that with what the calculation was in 2020, at that time we took the principal analyst and the senior analyst at step 4, and that's the middle of both of the ranges, and then took the average of that, and that was fed into the calculation. So the reason for going to having done 2 step increases, 1 step increase was for the salary range change that occurred, the commission approved last spring. So basically took added another step to the analyst positions and to the clerk position and eliminated the first step. So that was a 5% increase. And then instead of using step 4, we've decided in the calculation this time to use step 5 in recognition that both analysts are at step 5 or above in their current place on the salary schedules. And so that's the reason for the 10% increase, and on top of that, the COLA, it turned out with the compounding, it was rounded up to 14%. And then on the overhead side, so that overhead is calculated in 2020 as 127,000, and in 2022 as 113,000. And I'll go to the next spreadsheet that explains the overhead calculation. The next page. So 2022 is on top and 2020 is on the bottom. So the annual budget in 2022 was 28,000. This is for the supplies and services budget that we use in the calculation. We take 30% of that budget portion as part of the overhead. And then we take 5% of the executive officer's salary as part of the overhead, and 20% of the clerk to the commission's position as overhead. And we add those up and come to the overhead number. Now the calculation in 2020, the budget at that time was higher than it is today. So our budget in 2022 is 200 for supplies and services, 288,000. In 2020, it was 294,000. We added a contingency at that time to the calculation, and the contingency was due to some unknowns with COVID and the Ford dissolution. At that time, there were 2 ongoing lawsuits with ORA. There was a CalPERS termination liability that was not paid off yet. A number of fund transfers from FORA to other jurisdictions and function transfers. So we included a contingency of 45,000 to the overhead, which brought us up to an overhead of 339,000. So the overhead is fed into the calculation, taking 30% of that amount into the calculation for overhead. The executive officer's salary at that time was lower than it was as well as clerical salaries for the clerk to the commission. So that's the calculation difference from 2022 to 2021, 2022 to 2020, sorry. And then just comparison on the budget line items, there's also a comparison of what was adopted in 2020 versus 2022. So most of our expenses in 2022 have gone up by 10%, but the main items where the 2020 budget was higher than it is currently are due to liability insurance, which has gone down since then. And our contract with our accountant, Hayashi and Whalen. Also, just staff wise, which may feed into insurance. We had 4.5 staff in 2020. We have 4 staff in 2022. And then also outside consulting services, we had in the budget in 2020 potential for a professional services contract to handle FORA administration of our oversight of FORA issues back in 2020. That's no longer in the budget. So, so that's the more sheet by sheet breakdown. So if there's any questions, please let me know.
So I've got one question, and that is the attorneys, outside attorneys. How do we bill? I'll just use Kelly Donlin and BBK. How do we bill them to a project like this?
A project like the FORA dissolution.
Yeah, or we just hired, who's that guy you just hired, Kate, under contract, 24,000 to help you do analysis. So you've got him and you've got Kelly to look at things.
Right.
How do they get figured in here, and are they figured in here to the, because that 24,000 came in, I think, after you did this calculation. So did you pick it back up in this new calculation?
So the services is part of the overhead calculation. So we take into account the supplies and services, and we have so the outside professional services. I think you're referring to the Richard Berkson contract that the commission included 25,000 in the adopted 2022 budget. So that is included in this overhead calculation, or it's a part of it. And then Kelly's general counsel is budgeted at 8,682 in the current year budget. That's for general LAFCO, attending our meetings and reviewing just general counsel items not related to litigation or not related to FORA.
Okay, I'm just trying, Jonathan, as I explained to you when you and I were talking, I just want to make sure we capture everything so we don't have to come back on it again. So, Chris, do you have thoughts or questions?
My only question was towards the top, if you go up to where the benefits and salaries are,
Yes.
I see a reduction, right? Can we explain that? What is that negative number reflecting, and is that considered permanent, or are we expecting a position to be filled which will eat back into that I'm not aware of?
I can answer at least part of that, Commissioner. In 2020, we had 4.5 full-time equivalent positions, and we now have 4.0 funded positions. The half-time position was actually a clerical position, clerical support. And we eliminated that 2 years ago, and I consider that to be a permanent situation. We have achieved more efficiencies and more economies now with the clerk to the commission / office administrator position. And so we really don't need that additional half-time clerical position. So that explains, at least that explains the lower costs for salaries and benefits as compared to 2 years ago.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you for taking the extra time, because I just wanted to make sure that we all totally understand what it is, so we don't have to bring it back again.
Appreciate your questions. Make sure we're doing it thoroughly here.
So Chris, are you okay with this going for the full commission?
I am.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our next,
Item number 8 is the lease, the new lease agreement.
excuse me, Chair, before we get there, we also have consideration of some updates to the bylaws, item 7.
Oh, 7, sorry.
And Jonathan is going to present that for us.
Thank you, Chair Lawful and Commissioner Lopez. This item was also referred to the Budget and Finance Committee by the Commission at the August 22nd meeting. Staff and General Counsel had previously proposed updates to the bylaws just to clarify our standing practice that alternate commission members may attend and participate in closed session meetings. After further discussions with Chair Leffel and General Counsel, staff is proposing 7 updates. And these updates are shown as attachment 7.1 in track changes. And they would not change how we conduct our meetings, but only clarify the current practices that in these bylaws. I could go through each one if you prefer. There's only 7 to go through, but that's the general summary of this item.
I don't have any questions because Jonathan and I worked through these. Chris, have
No
you had a chance
questions.
to
I
read
did
them?
look through them and they look good to me.
Okay,
Okay.
so I think what you'll hear is a recommendation to take them to the full board for the September meeting.
We will do that. Thank you.
Thank you. So now, item 8, new office lease,
Yes.
or
thank you.
old office, but new lease.
Right. We've been here about 20 years now. So, and our current lease is expiring. The term expires next June. The current rent is about the same as it was in 2007 and 2008. We've had a series over the last dozen years or more of rent rollbacks or freezes. So we have a lease currently that's providing, we think, very good value, and we are ideally situated in terms of convenience for access to the county agencies that we work with, and central for our cities and special districts that we work with. So what I have attached for your consideration is a draft amendment number 7 to the current lease, and it includes 2 provisions. One would extend the current lease by 5 years to 2028. And it would also provide for a gradual increase in costs that would bring the per square foot rent up closer to the current market for comparable space. But we would be continuing to really be below market rate in terms of the costs. Our landlord recognizes that we are an anchor tenant here and appreciates that. And then we appreciate that he has in turn made some updates to our lighting and flooring and walls and keeping things current for us here. So our recommendation then is that the committee would recommend that the full commission approve this amendment to the current office lease agreement.
I just was on another Zoom call right before this one, and I think this lease is very, very fair, and it's an easy lease because so many things are considered in it that we're not paying little bits here and little bits there. So I would recommend that we approve this.
My only concern with it is under Exhibit B, The second to last point, building thermostat settings are for exclusive use of the lessor. You guys sure you want to give that up?
He's kind of had control of that all these years, but we know how to work that thermometer.
Okay, as
And
long as you're good with that. I'm just saying, I know that can be a point of contention with several organizations, so that was a
yeah,
weird one to me. I've never seen that in a lease.
maybe I'll bring it up to him because we definitely know how to control it. And
Right.
we do that. This week we did it.
Okay,
So, but thank you for pointing that out. So I'll think about that.
other than that, I'm good with it.
Okay. Thank you. So we will then bring this forward as well on September 26th for
Perfect.
commission action.
Okay, executive officer announcements. Kate?
I don't have any, thank you. I do appreciate, though, that the committee met today. That was on kind of short notice. And what I'm seeing, or what we've discussed recently with Chair Leffel, is that we are going to institute a regular quarterly meeting schedule for this commission. For many years, the committee had been meeting 3 times a year. And basically what we're doing here is implementing a summer meeting. And so that's all good. And everything is designed to improve and maintain good communication between staff and our committee members. So thank you for being willing to meet.
Okay. Chris, anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
Hey, have a happy weekend, you all, and thank you. Stay cool.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. Safe travels and
Bye-bye.
have a nice weekend.
Thanks. See you in a couple weeks.
Yes.